Greetings. So welcome to another video. It's been a minute. Just wanted to do a quick little reading vlog for the weekend. Talk about some of the books that I've been reading lately because they've been pretty interesting and I did want to chat about them a little bit. We're going to talk through the TBR, talk through some of the things we got going on for the weekend. The read I'm most excited about is Butcher of the Forest. This is by Premee Mohamed. It is so charming. I mean, it's very dark, but in a very charming way. It's taking place in a forest. It's a really small scale story. It's just one character mostly that we're following. We're pretty much in her head most of the time, just seeing the forest through her eyes. It is a very dangerous place, but a very beautiful place at the same time. It's also quite eerie. I have no idea where this is going. I've heard that it is quite grim. I just hit about the halfway point last night and it was actually pretty, I don't want to say scary. I mean like a little scary. It's definitely eerie. Eerie is the best word I can explain because nothing particularly violent is happening yet, but it's definitely that threat of possible violence just hanging over your head. I'm really interested to see. It's a short book. I think I could finish it this weekend, but I'm definitely going to get through a good chunk. I'm also a little past the halfway point on Something Wilder by Christina. I am listening to the audio on this and so far have not been super into it. I'm hoping that's going to change because I'm already about 60% in. I did really like another book that I read by Christina, so I had really high hopes for this, but I'm hoping to get through a chunk of that tonight and tomorrow. I'm almost at the end of Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. I actually made a resolution to read more philosophy this year. This was one of the ones highest up on my list. I actually have had this on my bookshelf for a couple years now too. I got it from a pile of used books at a game store that was on sale for $1. It's not a new book by any means. This one was published in 2006, but it looks like it was originally published 1959. I'd heard about it for a long time and I was looking forward to picking it up. I finally pushed myself to do that a couple months ago and I've been just slowly chipping away at it. I've been reading it pretty closely. I've been trying to actually take in what the messages are. It's talking a lot about like the meaning of life and suffering and coping basically. Yeah, I've been tabbing it up. I don't think I have fully formed thoughts on it yet, but I have thoughts. Most of them are neutral to positive. I'd like to finish that. I'm pretty close to the end of it. In terms of the weekend, it's actually going to be a nice, chill, standard weekend. I am working from home tomorrow for Friday. I think tomorrow night I'm going to try and make a little seasonal cocktail. I've been trying to do that like once a month and it's been really fun just to see what's in season and try to make something different each time, and that's been fun, like creative outlet. Other than that, we're just doing some chores, cleaning, laundry, and meal prep, all that fun stuff. That's the plan for the weekend. I'll check in with you later once I've read a little bit more.
Shuffling out of the narrow confines of the slot canyons meant it took them all a few seconds to adjust to the brilliant morning light. The sun was fresh, the sky cloudless and almost blindingly blue. But even bloody and half-blind, Leo could still make out the blobby shapes of 5 people standing.
Good morning. So I stayed up a little late and I got up a little early this morning and I did finish Something Wilder by Christina and I have a few thoughts. I think there was like one big thing that I really liked, this big kind of end takeaway. To me, it was about exploring and traveling and seeing places and meeting people, then making decisions and settling down from a place of knowing what your options are. Really tied in well with the romance itself. These two characters had met when they were young, so this was a second chance romance where they had some miscommunication when they were younger, some life things happened, now they're chance meeting 10 years later, getting to see if they still fit with each other. I do like that idea a lot, actually, having them be more mature and having gone through a little bit of life experience does give a lot more validity to and grounding to their romance. So that was a big theme that rounded out the novel by the end. Because of that, I probably will look back on this a little bit more fondly because in the moment I really wasn't enjoying it that much. I wasn't disliking it, but I also wasn't loving it. I think the side characters really took a lot out for me. I didn't really like the friends very much, and I didn't like their relationships with the main characters. I didn't think that they were super well developed. Even the ones that felt a little more developed, the male lead and his best friend, the foundation of their relationship made a lot of sense. They basically took trips together every year to help the main character kind of get through a grieving period of his life, and I like that a lot. And it didn't really make sense, some of the ways that they interacted later on with this basis. So I don't think that the relationships and the side characters were really well established or realistic, I guess. That really did take a lot out of it. And then the romance itself, the relationship with the two main characters, it was fine. I think there was a lot of focus on appearance and sexual chemistry that didn't really carry for me. Once they were together later in the story, I liked their relationship a little bit more and seeing how they were actually supportive with each other. That being said, I still don't feel like this was a relationship that I didn't understand the motivations of the characters, I guess, because there wasn't anything particularly special about this relationship that seemed worth changing your whole life around. These people come from very different worlds, and so that's a big topic of conversation, is how are these two going to compromise and make the relationship work in a realistic way, because when they were together in their younger years, it didn't work out. There's not very much time that they've spent together. Like, even when they were together in their younger years, they were only together 5 months, and then they're seeing each other this time around. They've been together for a week. Yes, they go through quite a bit together. I don't know if that's enough time to change your whole life for somebody. That being said, this was a very whimsical, plot-driven book. I think that the romance was clearly a main focus, but it wasn't necessarily very grounded. I noticed about 30% in, some of the events that were taking place were taking the story a little off the rails. It became this really big quest. It was kind of fun, I guess, but I just never understood the characters' motivations. It just wasn't as much fun as it could have been. So maybe about 3 stars. So that's Something Wilder by Christina Lauren, and I'm about to start work for the day. I'm already showered, dressed, fed the cat, and I'm working on my morning latte with my decaf espresso. Yeah, I'm ready to get the rest of the day started.
Serve to clarify this method further. The following patient was a bookkeeper who had been treated by many doctors and in several clinics without any therapeutic success. When he was admitted to my hospital department, he was in extreme despair, confessing that he was close to suicide. For some years he had suffered from a writer's cramp, which had recently become so severe that he was in danger of losing his job. A rich man's world. I have turned the soul of this beautiful land, but the beauty. A rich man's world, a rich man's world, beautiful land, but a rich man's world. I have turned the soul.
Okay, hey. I have 2 updates. So one is I wanted to share this meal prep that I ended up doing, which so stoked about. I just did a bunch of salmon bites that I marinated in teriyaki sauce, and I threw on top of some rice with frozen edamame and a little bit of mayo, and it came out so good. It actually tastes delicious. I've been working on cooking over the past year or so. I still don't like cooking, but I am so glad that I have been putting in the effort to at least get more comfortable with it. Now I get to eat yummy meals, and this is my meal prep for the week, and I don't get sick of it. Also, pretty excited about, I finished Man's Search for Meaning. I mostly spent a good chunk of time reading last night and then finished the last few pages this morning. I actually did some underlining, and there were some sections that really stuck out to me. I've already been chatting about it with my fiance, and I was chatting about it with another friend already today. I can tell that I am going to be bringing this one up pretty often. I probably like once a year I read a nonfiction book that reframes something for me, makes me think about things in a different way. This one managed to do that for me. That's always pretty powerful. If you're not familiar with it, it is by Viktor Frankl, who was a psychotherapist in the 1900s. He was in a couple of the different work camps during the Holocaust, ultimately ended up surviving and coming out the other side to speak about his concept of logotherapy. I had been meaning to get to it for a while. Kind of struggled to get through the first bit, not because it was very traumatic. Honestly, it was actually pretty unemotional. His writing is very observational, and I think that's done really intentionally and really well. He is using his experience from the Holocaust to showcase human behavior. I don't know. I've also read a lot about the Holocaust, and I've seen more emotionally written coverage of it. This is not that. I did have a misconception going into this that I would have had to have really suffered something really awful for this to be relatable, but the way that he frames suffering and how to deal with suffering ultimately just comes down to your attitude. That can be used in the context of really big, awful, horrendous suffering, as well as maybe some more day-to-day, month-to-month type of suffering. So ultimately, I did still find it to be applicable. There was another section that really caught me by surprise, I'd say, and it was about aging and transitoriness. It's just a mouthful of a word, but the idea that things in life are fleeting and experiences are transitory, temporary, which also ties into basically life is short, we don't live forever, and that's something that we all have to come to terms with. There was a really good quote about growing old, and he calls out how our society really puts young people on a pedestal. I'll just read you a quick quote. "One may see there is no reason to pity old people. Instead, young people should envy them. It is true that the old have no opportunities, no possibilities in the future, but they have more than that. Instead of possibilities in the future, they have realities in the past, the potentialities they have actualized, the meanings they have fulfilled, the values they have realized, and nothing and nobody can ever remove these assets from the past." This is something that I definitely have put a lot of thought into prior to reading this, and this is the first time I've ever seen it framed in this way, and I thought that was really interesting and made me reflect on the way I look at aging, and I'm very grateful for that. That alone, along with some of the other wisdom that I got out of this, made me very happy that I read this, and I would really recommend checking it out if you are at all interested. For the remainder of today, in terms of reading, I think I am going to mostly just be focusing on The Butcher of the Forest. I still am really enjoying this so far. I am so compelled to keep reading because the way the plot is just creating this tension and anticipation, I am just itching to see what happens in every next paragraph. I've had a really hard time putting this down at night. I will say there's been a couple nights I've stayed up too late reading this, so I definitely want to finish this so that I can get back to a normal sleep schedule. I have a final reading update, which is that I finished Butcher of the Forest. I really loved reading this, okay? I found it so compelling. There was something that I couldn't quite put my finger on. I loved the writing style. I think it really lended well to this atmospheric story, this atmospheric fairy tale, where the creatures were described fascinatingly as well, from everything from their appearance to their voice, sometimes their smell. I liked that evocative sensory descriptors. I also liked the characters overall. I did. I liked the main character. It is hard to connect with her because we don't get a lot of reflection, which is part of her character. Seems like she tries not to think about maybe the negative experiences she's had. We keep kind of circling this past memory without exploring it until the very end. It does get explained in the very end, but the big expose moment of truth was a little late in the game. It was like too little too late. The plot really is just about our main character getting into the forest, finding two children, and getting them out, which historically is practically impossible. Really fascinating to see how she navigates these creatures, basically like how you would see in other fae stories where you have this kind of trickery happening, this particular use of language and games that the characters have to navigate in a very careful and particular way. And that's always really interesting to read. I think it was pretty well done here. There's a lot of challenges and kind of tense, scary moments in the story. And for me, the scariest was maybe around the midpoint. We come across the Guardians. I think that was the most tense, creepy moment in the story. But there's a lot of those kind of tense, creepy moments. Yeah, I think the author did a really good job in creating this environment of tension and emotion, and also a lot of beauty. I think I mentioned that before. I think there's a lot of juxtaposition with the fear and dread that the characters are feeling with what seems to be a very lush, natural landscape, but it's also very full of mystery. And that not knowing what's there and not knowing what's next definitely makes for a really great setting, really fantastic setting. Yeah, I think there is something there in the character work that could have used a little more oomph. It was so close to being a 5-star. It was so close. So I would absolutely read more by this author, though. I think there's a lot of potential in this writing style, and I would still recommend picking it up if you have any interest in dark fairy tales. The interactions with the creatures in this book reminded me almost of the interactions with the Fae and the Cruel Prince. It's just like this interesting like world of rules where you can't lie and they can't lie to you, but they can mislead you. I'd like to look for more stories like that if anyone has any recommendations. All right, that's it for this reading vlog. So we completed Something Wilder by Christina Lauren, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, and The Butcher of the Forest by Premee Mohamed, which I really like the balance of those three. I think they have a lot of different things to offer. So that's what I like to see in my reading. I hope you enjoyed coming along with this. I'll see you in another video. I hope you have a great day. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.